My name is Ron van Bloois. I'm one of the 4 partners of HEVO. We are a leading consultancy, project management and development company in the Netherlands, totally focused on the alternatives in real estate. Since 2012, I'm also a lecturer at the Amsterdam School of Real Estate. And this year, we founded the Real Estate Association with the name Senior Housing and Healthcare Association. And I'm very proud to be the chairman of this association. And it actually also ticks all the boxes for me personally, because my purpose is to make impact through the built environment. So the association was launched a few months ago. It's a really interesting group also, because we are actually founded by the industry leaders of the healthcare business ourselves. And actually it combines a multi-stakeholder platform between healthcare operators, investors, and also stakeholders like banks. So feel free to visit our website and to look at membership or being friend of the association. Maybe interesting to highlight why we founded the association. I think it's key to try to maturitize the senior housing and healthcare investment market, because we have a lack of unbiased data. And actually we also try to determine definitions, because when we speak about senior living, well, sometimes we have a confusion of tongues. Where are we talking about? And I think we need a lot of inspiration. And I'm actually convinced when we share best practices on a European level, we get inspired by our colleagues. And also from an impact investing perspective, I think it's very important to look more closely on the performance on ESG and SDGs. In the end, the purpose of the association is to improve quality of life of aging population. And I think it's also important to, actually maximize the cost of healthcare regarding GDP, because it's very important that we can we have a valuable healthcare business, but also we can pay it, and it's still about affordability. Let's look a bit more closely towards the asset class of senior living and healthcare. And it's quite clear that healthcare becomes a mature asset class. And when we focus on the investor's perspective, well, it's interesting because investors are switching currently from offices or retail up to alternatives in search for volume diversification, especially the long-term cash flows. And I think also because of COVID-19, we are quite aware that healthcare is a resilient asset class. So we're not really correlated to political tensions and economic cycles. And when you look, for example, from a deal flow perspective, we could say that we're not talking about niche asset class, but it's becoming a mature asset class. So you could say from an investor's perspective, we are very happy. And nevertheless, the current challenges are in the stock and the current stock and transitions. And I think it's important to look more closely on these challenges. So from a multi-stakeholder perspective, we could say that we've got a great society challenge, because aging demographics are booming, but also diseases like dementia are really making impact on our society. And I think it's very important to clarify that we have a differentiation in terms of target groups. And also we've got changing in consumer behavior. So for example, the rising of senior living assets is a very interesting development, but we have to be aware that we're speaking about target groups. So look more closely, I think on the left side of the spectrum, we are speaking about self-sufficient elderly people, where we make senior living products. And when we add a little bit more of services, we are also able to make a good built environment for vulnerable elderly people with problems in terms of mobility or isolation. And when we have bigger challenges regarding the more well, let's speak about dementia, Korsakoff, or also physical limitations, we need to have a 24/7, more specialized long-term care home facilities. And I think it's important that we are quite aware of this spectrum of healthcare real estate. So it's not only about senior living, but also more specialized nursing home property. I think one of the latest research done by Savills highlights also that European senior living investments are really booming. Last year, 25% increase in the first half of 2020. So I think it's very interesting for investors to look more closely on this asset type. I think from the operator perspective, well, we should be aware of a few challenges and also the state of the current portfolio, because most of the operators have mainly outdated real estate portfolios. And they are also challenged by the Paris Agreement because they have to fulfill the sustainability performance. Nevertheless, they have limited balance sheet possibilities. So it's very difficult for operators to actually redevelop their current portfolio to future demands. And I think the most important task from a multi-stakeholder perspective is to look at a shared purpose. And I think the opportunity is in the value chain, in the value chain of impact investing. And I think it's all about alignment and shared purpose, where the most important element is the user happiness. I think it starts with user happiness and also the demand of users. And in the end, when we have this quite clear, we could speak about the ESGs of investors. So how can we make impact on the environmental, social, and governance perspective? Yeah, I think it's our challenge to, in the end, make an alignment with the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations, because we are very aware of the Paris Agreement and how can we fulfill these needs. And I think this is also a difficult task because measurement and valuation of ESG is quite difficult. So when you look more closely on the environmental perspective, how can we measure the positive performance on sustainability? How can we make our real estate future-proof, Paris-proof? On the social scope, it's all about the positive impact of quality of life. So how can we make a safety, healthy environment so we have the happiness of the user in the core? And the government perspective is all about risk management and affordability. And I think risk management, of course, from a bank perspective, but also from an investor perspective, is quite key, because when we have lower risk, it has a positive impact on yield. Of course, this beautiful lady, it's all about this user happiness. And I think it's time for a short wrap-up. So in terms of resilience, healthcare real estate actually ticks all the boxes. Nevertheless, the challenges are in the current stock and also in the transitions of the market regarding aging demographics and diseases. And I think we should, well, actually make alignment between the stakeholders. So it's a multi-stakeholder issue, and we have to search for a shared purpose. And I think the value chain of impact investing is very important, and therefore user happiness is key.